Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Haystack Gaming here, and I kind of want to review something here on my channel. Because I want to start getting into audio and stuff on my channel, and I also want to start getting into basically music and stuff. Start making music on my YouTube channel. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys was this app here, or basically what audio apps I basically use on my phone. I use it through my audio system and all my headphones, and even for gaming sometimes and stuff. So this is just basically what I use. What I do is I use this app called SoundID right here. Now, basically this one tunes my audio. Now, right now, this, if you disable that, it goes off to do that here. Headphones I use are the MDR Z7s, and I don't know why it's saying no internet connection. I do have internet connection. Why it is, I don't know. But basically, I have the headphones Sony MDR Z7s hooked up. I use these ones on here. I'll use the i5 560s or the XM4s. I'll usually switch out the XM3s sometimes too as well. But basically, what this does in terms of tuning your head or your headphones basically is they do this. So here, this is a Z type. Now I can actually customize my own preset, and I can do it based off the Z type category. I can just reference it right from that, or I can do a flat EQ completely. Right now I got a personal preference from that Z type. That's even further good. But what this does, it takes a lot of the issues out of like sound reproduction, and it makes it just better. Basically, it takes like a lot of background noise and things and just refines it to a T, refines it, and really good. And then my test you can actually sound burst test and do a hearing test, which will make the volume towards your hearing basically as well. It'll tune your sound to your hearing, which is nice. Alright, so that's the SoundID app. The next app I want to show you guys is the headphone Sony, which I do use. I use it with my Sony XBs and my other Sony X50s and my Sony XM3s that are coming in. And then the Soundcore, I use my Soundcore Anchor speaker, and then the LGs with my LG speaker. And this phone will allow me to connect two speakers at the same time. So I use that Anchor as a subwoofer, and then I run this LG system over audio CD system. But yeah, and then Amazon Alexa I have for my smart speaker. And then Wavelet, and this is where the real magic gets into. Wavelet is an app I cannot express enough to you guys. And before we get into it, this app right here, before we get into that one, the SoundID one, I forgot to mention is free, I think, on the phone version. If you pay $10 on the computer version, but I think it's free on the phone version. FYI there. And then on this Wavelet app here, I was thought this is amazing in terms of what it does. It's amazing. Basically, I'm gonna have to hook a headset up here probably. Yeah, I'm gonna hook it because I don't think we're gonna be able to show what I want without hooking a headset up. It works with speakers too. It'll work with the speaker as well. But I'm gonna hook these up here. Basically, what this does is you can tune any headset with any headphone you want. Basically, I have about 60 different EQs with them that I add on here using basically. And the creators of this are from XDA developers, which created a root version of an equalizer that without the headphone thing I was talking about. And that's been around for quite a while. But you had to root your phone to do it. This one, you don't have to root your phone to use. And a lot of phones are compatible with a lot of newer phones are. So, some older ones too. But basically, you have a limiter, which is basically you can limit anything you want. I just keep everything on here, usually on default. Works great. Channel balance is great. It eliminates any problems between the two channel balances, evens them out. That's great so you don't get well, basically, so you don't get any problems with your speakers in terms of one running two speakers, and number two, basically you're running into clipping issues that'll happen. Your volume will lower, so that balances it out. Basically, it'll help with that. You can actually turn a bass tuner on, which will either up your bass or it'll cap your bass as well. When you get higher frequencies of bass going, it can help with that a lot. So that's always a good feature. Virtualizer, you can make it like a virtualizer. Basically, now you get sound behind you. That'll do basically that. I usually don't recommend using it. Now, the virtualizer and the bass tuner, those are features you have to pay, I think, $4 to $5, I think it's like $5 for. And there's another one if you turn it off on legacy mode, but I don't recommend turning off legacy mode because it really distorts sound with it off, so just leave that on. The sample size, which I just turn all the way up because sometimes turning it down to about 520 or 496 is always good, but play around with that because 8.192 could be too high. It could be just right. Now, I used to use another app along with WaveWet, which was but I'll show you that one in a minute. But basically, we got the auto EQ here. I use the iBass, or this was preset the iBasses when I had this Sony ZR set up. But basically, the iBassos are really great, and that's one I usually go back to as well a lot. When I'm listening to classic rock, though, I like to go to the Marshall. The Marshall is really good with the classic rock. So I can find it here. This Marshall Major is pretty good with it. The JBL tunes are pretty good for some EDM. I prefer that for EDM. But I listen to a wide range of music, except country. I'm dead set against country. I won't listen to or classical. Other than that, I'll listen to pretty much anything. But I do prefer rap and rock, though. I really like rock. But Sony DRZ7s are what I really use. They're $500 headset that I can make any headset I have pretty much sound like. And you can make any headset you have pretty much reproduction of sound from the EQ of what that headset gives and tune it to any other headset. And it really, really it does. And another thing that this and the SoundID do is when you click on Sony DR7s and then you go back to the MDR3 and then you go back to the Z7s, it'll reproduce the sound differences between the M3s and the Z7s for you. So it compensates that and tunes it for you. So you're not just getting when you go to another headset, that exact sound of that headset. The only way to do that is if you go from the MDR3 to the D7, then I think it is you go back to the D and you click DR7 D or Z7s after going back to the MDR3s again. Another way to just bypass together, reset it, put it on flat EQ, and then just click the one you want, and you'll get that one right out the box sound, basically. But yeah, and then I base everything out and everything too as well. And this basically bases it out for you. It'll reproduce the sound, but it'll base it out. And a lot of these are tuned toward bass. I have a couple lighter sounding ones as well. The Hi-Fi TN Pros are good. I don't normally use these, but what I do with these is I'll go from the TNT Pros back to the iBasses. That one's really good with the iBasses for the compensation sound. The stacks are really good going back to Sony's for some bass. But what I really like doing, and as I'll use the Audio Legacy, which is as you can see here, it's a very light sounding headset, and I'll compensate it going back over here to the Sony. Now you won't see it on the EQ, but you will hear it in the sound to the Sonys, which is really nice. Another one I love to use is the Heavens A. Heavens A are amazing. They're really good, and Final does some pretty good stuff, but I wouldn't recommend them for any others but their Heaven lineup. The Sonos X is good, but it does not represent the price, I don't think, for audiophile. And it's not producing enough bass for most people. and it takes a minute to get used to. But another one I like, if I'm listening to frontal forward music, if I want frontal forward music, I'll use the focal, listen professional. The clear is good for when I'm listening to audio, like say audiobook, watching videos. That's pretty good. The clear one. And then FLC, you can get the FLC technology out of a headset basically in this. That's pretty good. That's another good one. Grado's okay. It's not the best one, but it's alright. Another one I recommend though is the Hi-Fi Man 560s. They're not on the bass heavy on this one, but on the SoundID they kind of are. But you're reproducing it now from there to this. It's fine, yeah. Hi-Fi Man 560 is good. The 2014 one I recommend more for the V1. Another one, if you really want bass, Hi-Fi Man RE800 is probably the most bass one I have on here. That's another good one to use. And you can see here on this one, that's producing a higher end bass and then the frequency's down. This is what the iBass produces as well. I think there's one other one that's more bass than this though. It's the Hi-Fi Man -5. That is a major drop in bass. And the 4 is pretty much an auto-tuned 5 version. It's basically a little bit lower, but it's tuned up in the vocal range a little bit more. But it's low. Those are pretty low. Another good one, if you want some kick bass, like a kick drum bass, the AKG K271 MK2 is pretty good. And you can see it's really kick drumming. They're off what it's doing. This one is really good too. But it's something you got to get used to in the sound. And it's good not for everything. It's for certain music. I would say more rock music goes really good with that. With the aftershocks. Let's see, the Sonos X here, you could see that you would think would be an up sound, but because it's U down here, it's actually really lighter. The A's, as I can show you here, the A's right here are like that sound. This is another one I use. That's how the EQ looks there. Pretty high up on the vocal range, kind of lower on the bass, but it's not too low enough to really. And there's what the Grado looks. These are professional headphones. Grado really big. You can tell that they're really giving the vocal a kind of tune up at the lower end, and they're really pushing the bass out. That's what they're doing there. But these lighter sounding headsets like the Brainwaves or the the Audio Legacy I was showing you are really good for compensation. Now, the CD300s are really good too as well. They're an older headset, but they're pretty good. And that would be the CD3000, I think. Yeah. The 380 are not the ones you want. The 3000s, I think, is the one you want. I mean, I would play around. I don't remember if it's the 380 or the 3000. There's only one of those that was good. I think it might be the 380. It's better. And here's what the iBass is like. Basically, it's really, when you get your lower end is in the V shape kind of down here, and that's where you get the lighter sound coming up. But it's good because it brings out the instrument a little more, but you still get that bass up here, and you get the vocal up. It's nice. That was pretty nice. But if I really want bass, and this is what the Sony DRZ7s sound like. Pretty nice ones. The Sennheiser HD 800s are really good. Not the 820, but the 800s. 820 is more when you're watching videos, movies, I'd say. But the 800's good. Z27s are really good. You can see it's really pushing the vocal up, but it's really got down here, which is where it's going to really shine that sub bass through. Give you that reverb, and then come up here, and it gives you that really big bass. Now, another cool thing you can do with this, you can actually EQ the strength of the EQ as well. I usually just leave it at 100%. Fine for me. Some people may want it down a little bit. You could do that, and it'll do this basically. And it lowers the gain on it basically. Same EQ, just lowers the EQ strength. Or basically the gain the EQ is giving. And this graphic EQ, on audio systems, or any speakers you have, almost, that are basically any audio systems. Some speakers are good with this, but a lot of them aren't. I know more mainly just turn this off. But I have a few that are. Like the JBLs are good with it. The Sonys and the Anchors are good. As long as your audio speaker's got bass, you're good. But the LG has bass, but I don't know. It just doesn't do this very well. But when I'm running the two together, I do use it. When I'm not, I don't. Usually I'll keep this on and keep it flat because it seems that if I keep this on and just keep it flat, it does fine. But this is saving the last add save of this, and it will save your presets for each headset that you have, and it'll separate. Each headset will save a preset to it, and it will be different for each headset you connect, which is really cool. But let's go over this limiter a little bit here. The attack time, you can actually lower, so it'll give a really long attack time. Release time, you can really have the release time of the reverb and the bass take a lot longer to release. The ratio, if you turn that up, it'll give more depth, but it'll also give a longer bass response. Sometimes it's not always ideal, so keeping it in between is always my ideal recommendation for any ratio setups. It'll compensate at 10.1 pretty well for most of it, and just leave that on default. And unless you really want a bigger depth of bass, I wouldn't turn it too much over it. And that's something that'll compensate the threshold ratio as well. I think the threshold is actually lowered on the ratio up. But never turn that all the way down. It'll clip your audio pretty bad. But I would almost recommend on this, right here, like I said, leave that on legacy because your audio will clip or will lower. It won't the trade-off basically is you're not going to get clipping, but you're going to get a lowered gain. It'll go up and lower in the sound frequency. And that could almost ruin your headset more than the clipping. And actually, what I found out, and this is another app I used to use. I said used to in past tense. I'm going to tell you why here in a minute. Now we're going to go search it here on search apps here. It's basically ReEQ app here. And basically what this one does here is it would volume. I used to usually just have this whole set equalizer for it for what was it, this one, but then it quit working, and then it wouldn't even turn on the app when I re-downloaded it. After I deleted another one that's by the same company, they have 3 of them. This one's more for a global output, works with that great, but it didn't work with the app, so I re-deleted it. This one is the one I was kind of using for a while. It worked really great, but it loved to clip my music. I was like, where's this clipping come from? Spent 5 hours trying to fix it. Found out it was this. Turn it off. Yes, I don't get the volume gain that I used to get. I found out that it was actually double volume gaining it with this app and the other app. The other app has its own volume gainer for each headset that it was actually EQing. It had its own different volume gainer for it. And the volume gainer, like I said, you could up and the bass response and everything. But basically, there was no need for this, so it's actually doing it through the app automatically. So, turn it off and everything. And yeah. The headphones, you have to turn up a little bit louder now, but that's not a big deal. It's not too much louder. And honestly, ever since I stopped using that, 100% more clarity to each and every speaker I've been using. It's amazing now. Headsets too. But yeah, and this one was another one by them. This was mainly used for Google Play when Google Play was around. But yeah, they updated it too. They added an amplifier to it. But I mean, I guess you could try this. It does work sometimes it doesn't. But it depends on what phone you're using, I guess. Samsung doesn't like 2 EQs at once and really screws around with in terms of software side of but the LG was really good for a lot of that. So but LG doesn't make phones anymore, and I haven't tested out other phones besides LG and this Samsung, so can't speak to other phones in terms of software side. I know iPhone doesn't have this app, so it's only an Android app. You wouldn't be able to get Wavelet on iPhone. So just as a recap here, I don't know if this one's on iPhone, but the Wavelet would not be, and neither would the other ReEQ app. So if you have an Android, this would be an app to use, and it would be great. And it's a good app. And I do recommend those that I do. And for a recap, here they are again. The apps that I use for audio. These are all my music and EQing apps the sound core anchor for my Anchor speakers, my headphones for Sony's, SoundID, Wavelet, and these are the two to really look out for, the SoundID and the Wavelet. Use those two. I would use them both together. You could use Wavelet separately as well, but I mean, either one works. It doesn't matter. Either one's good. They got their own ups and downs. And then I use Music Flow. Music Flow used to be the old LG app, but then they moved it over to the new one with the X Boom. Because the new updated speakers, whatever, the X Booms, the big audio ones, I guess they're calling them that. I don't even know. But yeah, the old CD systems are those. The older ones are the better ones, in my opinion, though. The new ones are just cheap. The old ones were built better. But anyhow, yeah, those are the apps I use. Hopefully this video doesn't get too long. It's about a 20-minute video. I'm trying to explain everything with that. But I just want to come on and explain, those are the music EQ apps that I use along with like my Sony extra basses or my Bose QC35s that I have laying around somewhere. Those are good for gaming. Very comfortable. But yeah, those are kind of what I use. And so, yeah. GG's guys out there, and I guess this has been your boy Haystack Gaming. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like the video and follow my Twitch, OBayBigH, for all my lives whenever I go live. And yeah, peace out. I'll see you on the next vid.